case people couldn't see it, watch it, hear it, or if you all want access later, you can.
That's good.
So, Melanie, go ahead. Thank you very
All right.
much.
Yes, well, thank you all for joining us here this evening and taking time out of your busy evening at home to be able to join us for this. I hope this is insightful. Like Tom said, I am an experienced hire recruiter for Grant Thornton. We are a large public accounting and consulting firm. We're actually based in Chicago. We have about 43,000 people worldwide, but about 9,000 professionals here in the United States. And we do tax and audit services, so that's the public accounting side. And then on the consulting side, we provide anything from cybersecurity consulting to supply chain consulting, any kind of financial or performance improvement consulting, so a variety of things. So I recruit mostly for the consultants. So I've been recruiting now for 6 years, I believe. I've done anything from like a headhunter type position to an internal HR role, and now public accounting recruiting. So I hope this is insightful and helpful. And of course, feel free to reach out to me either in the chat box on this or via LinkedIn or email afterwards. So I am going to present my screen and hopefully it works. I see that my camera has been flickering in and out, so I hope that the screen does not do that. So bear with me here while it starts. And Tom, if you can let me know when it's actually working.
It doesn't appear from my perspective that you're going in and out, Melanie.
Good, okay.
Yeah, everything's up. Your slide is
up. It is
up.
up. Wonderful, yes. Okay. And it's actually on a different screen. So if you see me look away, I'm looking to the other screen where this the slideshow is. Okay, so did it go to the next slide?
It did.
Perfect. Okay, so I wanted to first talk about the resume, of course, because that's probably going to be the first thing that you would use when conducting a job search. So as far as contact information, I feel like this goes without saying, but you would not believe how many resumes I see that don't include phone numbers or even email addresses. So as far as the contact information, of course, make sure your full name is there, email address, phone number, and then you don't necessarily have to list your physical address if you don't want to for security purposes, but at least list the city and state. Because oftentimes if a recruiter doesn't know where you're based out of and the job has to be in a certain location, they may pass over your resume if they don't know where you're at. So definitely include all of those pieces of information. As far as the length, I'm sure many of you have heard keep it to 1 page or only keep it to 2 pages. My rule of thumb, especially since everything's electronic now, is don't make it a certain amount of pages just because you feel like you have to keep it to a certain amount. For recent grads, I think 1 page is usually sufficient, but if you have 15, 20, 30 years of experience and you want to make sure that an employer sees all of your phenomenal experience, use the length of resume that you feel would ensure they get all of your experience. And also different fields. I know academia, for example, if you have a lot of publications, that's going to have a lot more versus the business world. So again, just be mindful of that. Multiple versions of your resume for various jobs, especially if you're either looking to change career fields or if you're interested in a variety of positions. For example, if you have a sales and marketing background, the resume that you put together for more of a commission-based like direct sales type of opportunity could be very different from what you would do for like an internal corporate marketing position. So I recommend that if you are going for different types of positions, create different resumes for those different types of positions and even tailor them to each job that you apply for. What I don't recommend though is over scrutinizing your resume, which is, I know it's hard to find that balance, but I've seen so many people that scrutinize every little thing in their resume and therefore only apply to 2 or 3 jobs and miss out on so many opportunities that they could have applied to had they just maybe been a little bit more efficient in their application process. And then the next piece, proofread, of course. And actually, Tom has said that the Valpo Career Center is phenomenal and will read through your resume for you, provide the extra set of eyes. It never hurts to have somebody else read through it. So I highly recommend using the Career Center and having them read through your resume. And then style and layout. So I don't know if any of you have ever seen this, I call it like the new age or modern type of resume, where it's an infographic style presentation almost. And I've even seen some that are interactive where you can click on something and you can see like somebody's work experience pops up. Those are fun. And I think for certain fields such as graphic design, marketing, I think they're becoming more of the norm. But if you don't feel comfortable with that, or you would not necessarily include information that should be included just because you want to have this kind of new looking style, you don't have to use that. I love to see a very well formatted, thought out, traditional style resume that gives all of the information on there, such as dates and employers, experience, that we need, because that's all, at the end of the day, something that is simply formatted but also tells your story in an easy to read fashion. That's what's going to get you recognized by a potential employer. So on the next page. So LinkedIn profile tips. I don't know if I can see show of hands, who all has a LinkedIn profile? If you can raise your hand. Wonderful. Okay, good. So LinkedIn is a huge tool that recruiters use when looking for candidates. In fact, if I can't find an applicant through applicants actually applying to a job, I go to LinkedIn to look at people's profiles and reach out to them directly for a particular job. So as far as your LinkedIn profile, the first thing that people will typically see is going to be your profile photo. So make sure it's a professional and up-to-date photo. Again, you would not believe how many people I've seen that I'll see their photo on their LinkedIn profile and then I meet them in person and I think, well, that doesn't look anything like them. So make sure you update that relatively frequently. And the other thing I recommend too is you don't necessarily have to be wearing a suit in your photo. You can if you want. But I've also seen a lot of photos that look like they came from frat parties or other types of things, and they cropped other people out. So make sure it's professional enough and suited to you as well. Work experience. I've also seen a lot of, if you're using LinkedIn as a tool, especially for a job search, I've seen a lot of profiles that don't have their work experience updated. They may not have updated to their current employer, or they have forgotten to put the end date at previous employers. So it looks like they currently work for 3 different places. So just do a run through of your work experience and make sure that everything's up to date. Same thing with certifications. As you earn different certifications, put those in your profile. If it's a very important certification that I would say would be relevant to your field. So for example, I work for a CPA firm. So CPA is obviously very, very important to our firm. Put that in your name or your title at the top of your profile. I actually do see a lot of CPAs that I talk to that don't have CPA listed in their LinkedIn profile. And then when I ask them about it, they say, oh yeah, I earned that years ago. So that could be huge. And that could also make or break whether or not someone would reach out to you for an opportunity. And then there's a section at the bottom of your LinkedIn profile where you can list additional certifications. I've seen a lot of like Lean Six Sigma Black Belt certifications, other like certificates that you may have earned. So different things like that. So make sure to list all of those. So the LinkedIn social activity piece. So this is something new to LinkedIn profiles that you may or may not have seen. But something I can't emphasize enough is that when you like something, a post, somebody's page, or you comment on it, or you post your own, or also upload something, that goes into your LinkedIn profile activity section. That's, I think, is right below like your headline and your name. So be mindful of even the posts that you comment on or like, because that will show up in your LinkedIn profile and therefore be visible to any potential employers or anybody in your network. So kind of a unique section then for job searching that I think a lot of people don't necessarily know about it, because it's probably 3 or 4 years old, but it's relatively new, is this open to new opportunities section. So if you go in to edit your profile on LinkedIn, there should be a box that pops up, again, relatively at the top, that says something along the lines of, are you looking for a job? Update the new opportunities section. And you can go into this section and fill it out, and you can choose what job titles you may be interested in, the locations, and you even write a little note that recruiters will see. The unique thing about this section is that it's only visible to people who have a LinkedIn recruiter specific software license. And typically those are only recruiters at corporations. So, and it's also only visible to recruiters outside of your organization. So if you're afraid about anybody within your organization, your boss, the C-suite seeing this, anybody who's listed as working for your current employer will not be able to see this, even if they have that recruiter seat, we call it. So it's typically pretty safe to fill that out if you are open to new opportunities. And especially in a job market where we now have a flood of candidates coming in the last few months, if recruiters are looking to fill a position, they'll often look for the candidates who have indicated that they are open to new opportunities first, before they then go to the general pool of candidates. So definitely that's a great tool to use. And then the LinkedIn profile versus your resume. So I've noticed, and even mine included, so my resume does not have everything that I've listed on my LinkedIn profile, and that's because I've only included relevant work experience on my resume. However, if you list the same things on your LinkedIn profile and your resume, make sure that dates line up. Dates, titles, employer names, those are very important. And I have seen so many profiles that the LinkedIn profile doesn't match the resume. What I would say you could put on your LinkedIn profile that you wouldn't necessarily always include on your resume would either be jobs that you've done in the past that you don't necessarily feel are relevant to your current job search, volunteer opportunities, board member positions, other things like that that would be maybe a little bit extra that you don't necessarily think you may need to have on your resume. However, I will say I often like to see either activities, hobbies, volunteer opportunities on the resume because it gives you a little bit more character and personality. And it's also something to talk about in an interview too. I've seen so many hiring managers, and myself included, if I see something on the person's resume that's interesting, I think I saw somebody the other day who had climbed, I think it was Mount Kenya, and I asked them about that. It adds something different, and that will also make you remembered in an interview process, which is huge, especially now when there are so many candidates on the market. So applying for jobs, so something I do want to talk about, and Tom, we had to talk about this morning, the applicant tracking system. So when you submit your resume to a company's career page, or like when you apply to a job, essentially, it goes into an applicant tracking system. Some systems can actually read through your resume and pull out keywords and show those to the recruiters to indicate whether or not somebody would be qualified for that job. So essentially the artificial intelligence factor of this applicant tracking system. Not all of them do it, but a lot of them do. So I can't stress enough, make sure you have keywords in your resume that you feel would make you stand out as being qualified for that position. And then as far as how to find those jobs to apply for, you can go about it a couple ways. Of course, using the job search platforms, such as LinkedIn, Indeed, Career Builder, Monster, and then there's also quite a few different job search platforms that are for different fields. I know most professional organizations often have a careers page. For example, the American Society of CPAs, they have one on their website. I know a lot of medical associations, nursing, things like that, they have them there. So use those niche, what we call niche job boards. But you can also create your own target list, and that's the first bullet point here. So if you have different companies that you're really interested in, and you say, man, I'd really love to work for Google or Facebook, write down your target list of companies and save their career websites as a bookmark, and just go into those either every few weeks or every month. Most companies they'll either post as jobs come available, or sometimes they'll update them quarterly. Again, it just kind of depends on the company. But create that target list of companies almost as you would if you were a salesperson looking to create your target list of clients. And then also job titles, because I know many fields that there could be different job titles for essentially the same position. So for example, in the consulting field, we see consultant, we see associate, we see analyst, and they're often the same thing. They're just different titles. So create that list of different titles that you may see associated with the job that you want, and then use those when you put those into the search platform. And again, we already talked about the applicant tracking systems. So the mindful applying. So something else that I see a lot that I wish people would be a little bit more aware of is don't apply for jobs that you are definitely not qualified for. So by mindful applying, what I mean is read through the job description. If it requires 10 years of experience and it says that's required and you only have 2, I wouldn't recommend applying for it because you'll just get a rejection email, and it's not worth your precious time to apply for a job that is way far off of what the requirements are. Now, if you see something that says 10 years of experience and you have 9.5, I would say that's worth applying for because they could be flexible, or in 6 months you'll have that 10 years, and if they don't hire for 6 months, you could be added to that pipeline. So just be mindful of the jobs you apply for and make sure that you fit the qualifications, and potentially, like I said, you could go a little bit more or get a little bit, I guess, overzealous and apply to some that could almost fit, but definitely don't apply to any that you don't think could fit whatsoever. And then the point about job searching like a pyramid, not a cylinder. I see so many people that get so excited that they find 2 or 3 jobs on the job board that they're so excited for that they put all of their energy into that and they never get a call back. And that's sad. I think that everyone at least should either get an email or something to say whether they've moved on or not. But unfortunately, that's not the reality of job searching. So I like to say that your job search should look like an upside down pyramid. Not right side up, but upside down. So you'll apply to a lot of jobs, and then you may get callbacks from a few more, and you may do interviews from, or kind of going down the line to eventually lead to an offer. Applying to 3 jobs likely won't lead to 3 offers. You may have to apply to 50 to get 1 or 2 offers. So just keep that in mind. And also, of course, patience. So something else with patience too, and I know it's really hard to say, especially in this market and these crazy times we live in. A lot of companies, they're going through even daily changes. I've seen even on our side where we will have one day where they'll be like, okay, I think we're going to start opening up hiring again. And then they'll say, well, you know what, we need to be a little more cautious. So if you don't hear back in a couple of days or even a couple of weeks, I wouldn't necessarily fret or get nervous. It's just that there needs to be a lot of patience right now, because it's unfortunately the market that we're in. As far as networking, so I know it's hard because we can't actually do in-person networking events. So the seminars and the conferences that a lot of people would typically go to be able to network for a job search or their own business or things like that, those are canceled, and the in-person pieces are. However, we have LinkedIn, we have Zoom, we have Google Meet, we have all of these different technological pieces that we can use to certainly be able to network. So leverage the LinkedIn social platform. If you post or you write some sort of thoughtware, an article, use hashtags and also tag people in it, because I think that really helps, especially the hashtag piece, because that will get noticed. So if you write something that's relevant to your field and you want people to notice you, because if people notice you, of course, they may reach out if they have opportunities, if they find that your thoughtware or your article is insightful. The more tags you put in there, that could increase the visibility. So definitely use those social platforms. So being open-minded with conversations. I've also seen a lot of job seekers go into their networking approach saying, if this person can't get me a job or tell me where I can find a job at their company, I'm not open to speaking to them. And especially right now where it's a crazy world that we live in, there are limited jobs, there's a lot of job seekers on the market, go into any conversation knowing that, you know what, I'm not sure what this person is going to help me with, but I'm excited to meet somebody new and I'm happy to help them with something. And maybe in the end, they'll be able to help me with something. Because even if that person can't necessarily give you that job lead you're looking for, maybe they can connect you with somebody who will have that next best career opportunity. So definitely be open-minded as you go into these conversations. And same thing, again, online groups or forums. I know a lot of professional organizations have great ones, all the different types of social media platforms. I've even seen like Zoom calls and different interesting things be set up just in the last 2 or 3 months that could be really relevant to help with job searching. And then of course the networks, Valpo, of course the alumni network is huge. So definitely leverage that if you can. Okay. So interacting and actually going through this interview process. So we're at the point where you've gotten a call back, you are going to schedule either a call with the recruiter or with the hiring manager, or not these times typically, but in normal times, you may have an in-person interview. So treat every interaction as if it's an interview. I've seen a lot of candidates blow off their recruiter screen because they think, oh, that's just the recruiter. They're not actually on the team. They don't know what they're talking about. I just want to get to the team interview and impress the team. That's not good, because that first initial screen with the recruiter helps to figure out, are you a good personality or cultural fit for the firm? Do you have just the initial technical qualifications needed for that position? So treat every interaction with anyone at that company as if they are doing that final round interview that will get you that offer. So another thing about messages from recruiters, and this kind of actually goes back to the LinkedIn profile. So something else that I think a lot of people just don't know is when a recruiter sends a message through the LinkedIn recruiter platform to anybody within LinkedIn, you get the option to either accept or decline that message. And if you decline their message without responding back with a message, that recruiter can't contact you within, I think it's either 2 or 3 months. So if you think about it, if I had reached out to somebody back in February and they weren't interested in my job, they just clicked decline, and all of a sudden their company laid off and they're looking for a job, LinkedIn does not allow me to reach out to that person again because they declined my message and therefore said, I'm not interested. However, even if you're not interested in that job, if you decline the message, but then respond to that recruiter with a message saying, thank you for reaching out, I'm not interested, but let's keep in touch for the future, then they can respond back to you. So if they then see that a month later you were unfortunately laid off or something happened and they want to reach out to you again, they're able to do that. So my recommendation is never flat out decline a message. Even if you don't want it, at least respond back to say, hey, I'm not interested now, but let's keep in touch. And then preparing for an interview.
Melanie, I have a question about that. So after you
Sure.
decline, it gives you a chance to message them back. Is
Yes.
that sufficient, or do you have to message them elsewhere?
Nope, that's sufficient. So
Okay,
if
thank
you
you.
decline the in-mail, they're called in-mails through LinkedIn. If you decline the in-mail and then just write a message back, they can respond and continue to correspond. But and I see this all the time. But if somebody does just decline it and never sends anything else back, I actually get a message from LinkedIn saying, sorry, this person declined your message. You're not able to send a response. So yeah, great question. So then preparing for an interview, also make sure you're prepared. I've seen so many people, we have a lot of competitors in the public accounting industry that I'll ask them, well, what do you know about Grant Thornton? And they'll start telling me facts about one of our competitors. And I think, oh, that's not good. It doesn't look good. So definitely be prepared. Something else that I find funny too is I can tell when somebody's prepared by either networking with people that they know at the company or maybe looking for some articles that were written. Versus those who just went onto the website and pulled off some data about when they were founded, how many employees they have, and then just wanted to ramble that off. We're not looking for the encyclopedia. We're looking for somebody who's thoughtfully decided to prepare for the interview. And also asking questions. Certainly make sure to ask mindful questions and to really show your interest in the position and the company. And then being transparent and communicative. So this is something that I often see. Well, in the strong market over the last few years, I felt like a lot of candidates weren't necessarily being transparent with us. So if we got to offer stage, something would happen at the end and we thought that they were super interested in the opportunity, and then all of a sudden they would ghost us. We literally had people get a job offer and didn't even decline it. They just never got back to us. And we were like, what? And I think that had the candidate been more transparent or communicative in the beginning and had said, you know what, this isn't the opportunity for me, I would prefer not to move to offer stage. I'm going to accept this other offer. That would have been much better for everybody in the job search process. Because now that we're in a completely different market, if any of those candidates who just dropped off the face of the earth, even if they got an offer, come back to us, that won't look good on them, and we probably wouldn't be able to restart the process. However, had they been transparent and communicative, we certainly would have reconsidered them in the future for sure. And again, patience. Like I said, it's a lot of the interview processes, and I've heard this not just from our company, but from candidates across the board. Positions have been put on hold, or there's a lot of uncertainty about when, even if they go through the interview process, when an offer could actually be made. So just keep in mind that even if you get an interview with a company, it goes well, you may not necessarily get an offer right away. And ask the recruiter or the hiring manager that you're working with if they can be transparent and give you that a timeline, if they know. A lot of times we don't know, but also ask for that transparent communication on their side too.
Melanie, I want to get back to a point that Ron made,
Sure.
and you've alluded to too, and that is being professional and communicative with the employers. One of the pieces of advice I give to students and alumni too is, even if you get turned down for a job, be appreciative. Thank them for letting you know. Thank them for taking you through the process. Unfortunate it didn't work out at this point in time, but maybe down the road. You don't want to burn any bridges. Leave the lines of communication open. You never know as a job hunter what might happen down the road. You want to leave a good taste in people's mouths. Do you agree with that? Should, once you've turned someone down, perhaps haven't extended an offer, is there any problem in them staying in touch with you, leaving things open?
That's phenomenal. So we're actually, so I'll give you an example. So we're conducting a very high level search right now, and we're looking for a very, very particular person for one of the teams that I recruit for. And right now we have quite a few phenomenal candidates in our candidate pipeline. And unfortunately, I know that I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 people just currently that are still in the process that I think could be great on the team. But I also know that only one can get the job. And of those 5 or 6 that are currently going through the process, I'm not even sure that all of them are necessarily the best person for that job, even if we had 5 or 6 roles open. However, I do feel that as we have more positions open up, we would certainly be able to go back to any of the people that weren't necessarily the best fit for this one particular role. They could be a great fit for a future role. So yes, absolutely. If you get a call saying, you know what, we went with a different candidate, thank them for your time and ask to stay in touch, because we've had quite a few instances where that's happened. We've gone through the interview process, went with somebody else because we had a particular need at that time, and then a few months later a different need came up. We called somebody back and they ended up coming on board with us. So yes, absolutely stay in touch with the teams.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yes, great question. Okay, so accepting an opportunity. So especially too in a market where it's more of an employer-driven market, so where there's a lot of candidates on the market and fewer job opportunities, I see a lot of candidates get so excited about getting to offer process and getting an offer that they forget to ask questions, or they don't necessarily have enough information and end up making a wrong decision. So to those first 2 bullet points, the ensuring you have enough information to make a definite decision. If you go through the interview process and the recruiter says, okay, we're done, you've met with the hiring manager, you met with the team, you've met with your peers, do you feel like you have enough information to make that decision? Saying no is definitely not going to exclude you from getting an offer. If you say, you know what, I had a couple more questions about the sales goals for this position, or I'm not really quite sure what the travel requirement is, can I speak to somebody else on the team? That is absolutely okay, and I highly recommend it, because the worst thing you could do is accept a job that isn't right for you and then be back on the job market in a few weeks or months or even a year. That same thing goes with the tough questions and investigate red flags. Again, in a market where there aren't as many opportunities, again, I often see candidates ignoring these because they're just so excited to get a job. So if you see something that comes up that doesn't seem right, trust your gut, investigate it, ask about it, because you definitely want to make sure, again, that you get the right opportunity. So regarding compensation, that's the other thing too. Most companies, at least, so our best practice is we always ask about compensation in the initial screening call. So the first time you interact with us, we don't ask necessarily what your exact number is that you'd like to see an offer. We ask what you're looking for. And the reason for this is we don't want to get through the interview process and find out at the end that what you were looking for and what we were able to offer for that position is so far off, and then we would have wasted your time and our time through an interview process. So before you go into a job search, just have a rough idea of what the position that you are targeting would be as far as market rate. And of course, keep in mind too that geographic market makes a big difference. If you're in Milwaukee versus Chicago, for us, that is a massive difference. So for us, Milwaukee is what we would consider a 90% market, and Chicago is 110% market. So obviously cost of living difference is huge there. Also know that market fluctuates, and I mean, we've seen the last couple months the market has fluctuated overnight. And then I've also seen too, so even though, like I said, it's an employer-driven market, we've actually seen market rates for some very high in-demand jobs right now have actually gone up. So definitely do your research, and don't always necessarily say, okay, this is what my salary is today, so therefore I'm going to look for this new position. Do your research to figure out what the market rate is, because I've also seen a lot of candidates that have been severely underpaid, and by the time they did their research, they realized they were severely underpaid and then were able to get a much higher offer. Also, well, actually not, so there are a few states, so actually Illinois is one of these, that it is illegal for hiring teams to ask you what you are currently making or salary history. This isn't true for all states, but it is for quite a few. So recruiters should not be asking you what you're currently making. Some do, and it is legal still in some states, but again, it's not the best practice. So most companies have moved towards the practice of asking you what you're targeting, and shouldn't be asking you what you're making. And then the last piece, benefits package. So this is often something that's overlooked, and I wish it wouldn't be a huge part of your overall compensation package. If you get an offer that has a great salary, but then you see their benefits package and you have to pay 100% of your health care, that's going to be a huge financial burden to you. So before you accept an offer, and I even share our benefits package even before we get to the stage where we would draft up an offer. I think at least our benefits package is very comparable to the rest of our industry, so there usually aren't any discrepancies, but see if you can get this before you even have salary discussions, because it can make a huge difference. And same thing with 401k matching. the other benefit, so the dental, vision, health, of course, those are going to be the big ones, but bonuses, things like that too. So make sure you see that full, a lot of companies are calling total rewards package before you accept an offer, and always ask questions too. I usually spend 30 to 60 minutes on the phone with candidates before we even get to offer stage, just going through our benefits package, because I want to make sure that they understand everything that they're walking into. So I believe that is everything. So are there any questions?
We've filled up 30 minutes.
Yes.
But
So
do you have a few minutes, Melanie, to answer a few
absolutely.
questions? And we haven't had much of a chance for those to, and that's what you're asking there, but I just want to make sure you can stay on for a few more minutes. Is that okay?
Yes. Yep, no problem. And I'll actually take down the presentation so the camera should be back.
Does Valpo have any forums like this, networking groups that get together on Zoom to support one another and see who's out there and who's recruiting and who's what people are seeing out in the market, et cetera?
Does Valpo have any of those kinds of groups? Is that what you said, Ron?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of, but that's a really good point and a good idea, I think, to get on online like this and have some exchange. There is an online alumni career network called Valpo Connect, powered by Wiser. Perhaps you're aware of that. But what you're talking about is some live interchange.
Yeah, like if I could know what Lisa's looking for, I might have some connections for her. If I understood exactly, what jobs she's looking for, what companies are her target companies. I'm on a number of calls throughout the week from the southeastern Wisconsin area that I was clued into with some people on my network that I'm working with. And they're really beneficial. People can tell their story, give their 1-minute pitch, give their 30-second pitch, their 3-minute pitch, and just try it out. And then people understand who they are, what they're looking for, what their target companies are. And a lot of times people are able to make connections for them. So it would be really neat to do that through the Valpo network, because we all have that common ties of the university as well as our faith and wanting to help one another. There's some Facebook groups. There are some of those other online resources, but just getting a chance to interact with people through a group like this could be very beneficial. I would definitely be willing and would like to participate if that happens.
Great, Ron. Thanks. Great idea. Appreciate the observation and suggestion.
Ron, there's something here. So I'm in Indianapolis. We have something called Passport to Employment, and I think it may be a nationwide thing. I don't know if you have that up in Wisconsin.
Not familiar with it, but I'll look it up. Passport, what was it? Passport to
Employment. Again, it may be something that's local, but I thought they were a chapter of a more nationwide group. So they meet, I think it's once a week, and actually what you were just describing is what they do. So they come together Monday nights for, I think, about an hour or two, and they talk about how can I help you. So most people that join are job seekers, but however, there will be some people that come that are employers looking to hire, and it's everybody just networking. And somebody may say, I'm an accountant, I'm looking for an accounting position. Somebody else may say, I'm an engineer, I'm looking for an engineering position, and they'll just share job leads that they may see in the marketplace, and also help each other with resumes. It's a really positive networking group for anybody who's looking for a job. And then I've also seen too, when people find a job, they continue going to the group to help the rest of the people in the group.
That's what's happening with the groups that I'm working with, and a lot of their what they call graduates from the program who then have employment. Since they've gone through the process, then they're working with the people that are in the group to understand, some of the challenges, some of the things they learned along the way. I actually have some information for the people in Wisconsin about these groups that I'll put in the chat. But there's a 40+ group, there's a Crossroads group, there's a Pong group for professionals. There's a lot more out there than people realize in terms of you know, Melanie, you went through a lot of material in a
Yeah,
very
that was a lot
short
of
amount of time.
information. Yes.
Yeah, but it's a long process, especially if
Mhm.
you're changing careers or trying to pivot into something new. So,
Yes.
Other questions that anyone has, or observations or suggestions?
I put a question in the chat, and I guess this is where I'm still struggling with my resume. I'm in the process of starting my job search, so I'm at the very beginning stages. And I worked for the first 12 years after graduation, and then I decided to stay home with my family. And probably after about 10 or 12 years, I started volunteering. I'm an accountant by trade, so don't have a CPA.
Okay.
Not-for-profit was my area. And so I started working with our church, did a lot of stuff with that. So I'm including that on my resume, showing that it's all volunteer, but it's significant volunteer stuff. It's not just, oh, I did a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And then now I call it being underemployed. I decided to get back into the workforce, kind of just to test the water in something simple. So I'm just doing some bookkeeping at a high school in Kenosha. But now I'm like, okay, that's the part-time and the pay is not enough. I need something more exciting, more, I've got talent and I feel like I could still use it. So any idea of how, on my resume right now, I'm not even including my original first 12 years because that's so long ago, and B, I kind of not sure it's even relevant at this point based on what I've done more recently. Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. So I would say, so if you feel that the first 12 years, if it's still relevant to accounting and you're looking for an accounting position, it may be worth it to include it, but maybe not necessarily a big section. So actually what I've seen a lot of people do is they'll put their more recent experience at the top, and they'll do it chronological from most recent to oldest, and they'll have pretty in-depth descriptions of what they have done. But then at the end, they'll have another section that says additional work experience, and then they'll just list those positions that are like a lot longer. So that's something you could do if you want to show, especially if you had job titles, because you don't necessarily have to list like a description of all of the jobs that were pretty far in the past. But if the job titles are relevant to what you're looking for, I don't think it could hurt. Because again, with the keywords piece. So if there are keywords in there that you feel would help your resume be noticed, either through an applicant tracking system or a search engine, that could help. What I've also seen is a headline. So I've seen, and actually this is a true for a lot of people who are either looking to change careers or get back into the workforce after being out for a while. At the top of your resume, you could put something like looking for full-time accounting position. That way people will know, because if they see your resume and see that you've been doing volunteer work or part-time work, they may think, oh, she's looking for just a part-time job. But if you make it very clear at the top of your resume, I want something full-time, I want it in this field, I think that will also get it noticed too.
Okay, thank you.
Feel free to reach out to the Career Center, Lisa and Ron, anyone else for that matter. We work with alumni all the time, not just current students. So we're happy to help in whatever way we can.
thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure.
These are great questions. Thank you all. I'd also be happy if you'd like to see a copy of the presentation. I can send that to Tom, and he can distribute that. And I actually, so the actual bullet points on the screen, they didn't really give much detail, but in the notes section of each slide, that goes through what I actually discussed. So you can see that in more detail. If you'd like a copy, I'll send it to Tom.
I would like a copy, please, for sure.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely distribute it.
Sure. I'll get it to you, Lisa. I have a question with regards to applying for opportunities online. It's pretty easy to do, accessible.
Yes.
Probably popular in some ways. But are you hiring many people through online job postings, or are you finding that most people are getting their job opportunities through referrals and contacts and a network of people?
That's actually a great question. So the company that I work for, we track where each hire comes from, actually where any applicant comes from, whether that's a job board, a referral, a niche, like either like a mainstream job board or like a CPA type job board or anything like that. Our statistics for 2019, where I believe it was either 45 or 50% of the hires we had last year came from an employee referral. So networking. It depends on what your field is. There are some fields where it's pretty easy to find a job via submitting a resume. There's others that it's a lot harder. And then there's also some fields that are so in demand that you don't even have to send in a resume. 5 recruiters are going to reach out to you. I mean, a couple of years ago when we had such a high demand for CPAs, I would have some candidates tell me, you're the 60th, literally 60th recruiter who's reached out to me in the last 3 months. Why should I talk to you? I'm like, wow, that'd be a nice position to be in. Again, the market's completely changed. This is a couple of years ago. But yes, that's a great question because we do get so many referrals.
Any one last question? Observation, suggestion?
Who on this call is actively looking for new opportunities?
I am, obviously.
Ron,
I've been in a odd spot myself because like I was slated to do a bunch of mostly odd jobs earlier this year, and then COVID hit and all of those dried up, and some of them are starting to resume, but it's really uncertain right now.
What field are you in, Timothy?
I'm a historian, so I was working at a museum and the museum closed. It's reopening next week, but they haven't said who they're rehiring from the staff yet.
And where are you located, Timothy?
In Dayton, Ohio.
Actually, Timothy, I think I saw I don't know if you're interested in moving, but I thought I saw that the Indiana Historical Society here in Indianapolis was hiring. I don't remember what the position was, but I was really excited to see that because they've been closed for so long. So I don't know if you would even be interested in reaching out to them, and even if you don't want to move outside of Dayton, they may know of positions in your area just through their network that may be hiring too. Again, I'm pretty sure that's who it was.
I'll look into that. Thank you.
Sure.
Lisa, I posted my LinkedIn information and my contact information. I'm actually going to be doing some research in the area of software for accounting, and I have some contacts, that own their own accounting consulting firms and such.
Okay.
So if you want to connect, maybe I can get you connected to some people that, if nothing else, you could do information interviews with in the Wisconsin area here, southeastern
That would be
Wisconsin.
great. Thank you, Ron. I'll reach
You're
out.
welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Great suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Conversations lead to other conversations, which lead to opportunities. Just never know. Who knows who's needing what.
Yes,
Yeah,
the power of
Melanie,
networking.
Yep, and Melanie earlier said that the Valpo family is large, and it'd be neat to be on a southeastern Wisconsin, northern Illinois networking event, just to talk to people who are either looking to transition or are looking for good people with good backgrounds, solid foundation, values, etc. Because I would put everyone who graduated from Valpo in that category.
It's a great idea, Ron. I'll get with Stephanie Sepiol, our colleague in alumni engagement, and we'll do a little brainstorming. And I don't think it would be too difficult to arrange. But easier online, actually, than try to do something like that in person these days.
Yeah,
it's easier to do online.
Yeah, and one day I went to 3 networking events. If I had to drive to them, I would have been out of gas by 11 a.m. So this is a wonderful opportunity with technology to start networking more than just through LinkedIn profiles and such. It's one to start having conversations, seeing people's faces, and helping one another. even if you're not necessarily looking for a job, if you're trying to find your real calling in life, these groups might be good to just reach out and say, I'm underemployed, or I'm unhappy in my job, or you don't have to say that, but what I'm really looking for is this, and that could also help people find their true calling versus just letting their career kind of work out, just over time. Might be a way to expedite it for them.
We all see these surveys every so often by Gallup or the Pew Trust or whomever. And I think one I saw not too long ago, I think they're all kind of similar, but they found that something like 65% of the U.S. workforce would change jobs in a heartbeat if they could.
I saw the
Yeah,
same
if you're
stat.
not happy or engaged, you're very ineffective. And just think how much more we would be as a country if people were actually in the right positions, doing what they really should be doing, and how much happier people would be.
Make a huge difference. Huge difference.
Something else I forgot to mention, I know that we're talking about all of this online. So I think before the pandemic, I saw a stat that only 3% of the workforce had 100% like full remote positions. So like I said, I actually work from home permanently, but I was only apparently one of 3%. And now I'm seeing so many more articles that state that they anticipate a lot of the jobs don't necessarily ever have to go back into the office. So if you're in a field that, and you would feel comfortable, of course, it's a very different lifestyle to permanently work from home. It's interesting. You have to keep yourself focused sometimes, especially when you have 3 cats and they like to jump on your lap all the time. But if you are the type of person that you feel you could easily work from home, broaden your search. And if you're in a field too, of course, that would warrant working from home. Search for a job in San Francisco, and maybe you'd even get a salary for San Francisco when you're sitting in Wisconsin, because you can do it remotely. And I think that a lot of companies are noticing that, hey, we can have this job be done anywhere, and are therefore a lot more willing to hire workers from anywhere.
Yeah, the talent pool has just increased for a lot of organizations when they decided that we needed to get people working remotely. Companies here in Wisconsin like Baird didn't even have people working remotely at all.
Really?
Yeah, and obviously if they wanted to continue forward, everyone had to work remotely with the stay at home. So yeah, talent pools have grown tremendously through this whole thing. And we'll see what companies tap into that and which ones don't.
Exactly.
Well, my husband is looking for a position and has been for quite some time. He was deemed retired from his company, and they wanted everybody out of the office. They wanted to downsize their office space to cut costs. And he purposely went in a couple of days a week, 3 days a week, just to show that, yes, I am really working and I do still exist and I'm alive and make connections. But he could have easily stayed and worked from home remotely. And that was, that's been for years like that. So it's a trend, I think, that's just kind of been forced by this whole coronavirus, that people are rethinking that more.
It's a huge fixed cost for businesses to have offices and furniture and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I don't want to be in the business of having office space to rent, because I think that's going to be a challenging environment here after COVID.
Our chief economist actually talked a few weeks ago about what's going to happen after this, and she said that she anticipates commercial real estate is going to be one of the industries severely impacted for a long time by this.
Yeah, and I was on a Zoom call today, and Zoom is, obviously a competitor to Google meetings that we're on, but those kind of companies are just skyrocketing in usage, and Microsoft Teams just redefining how we do business and interact with people. So, and all of education is happening now online.
We have several employers.
Tremendously.
We have several employers in the Valpo area looking for full-time hires at the moment. They're having a little bit of trouble hiring someone. They'd like someone maybe coming right out of school or a year or two out, financial services. No, it's the insurance and risk management field. It's not selling insurance. It's corporate and industrial kind of insurance too, not life insurance. I realize that a lot of people hear the word insurance and they shudder and go the other way. But this is really a neat opportunity to grow with a small, long-standing, ambitious firm in the city in Valpo, and they're having trouble finding the right people. The fit is huge. That's a big deal.
Yeah. So are they hiring remotely, or are they only hiring for people to work in Valpo?
I don't think they've considered the remote thing, Ron. I think they want someone who physically is in Valpo.
Okay. Interesting. Because it's also a way to grow your market if you have people in different areas physically. You then have a presence and you have some insight and information about potential other areas to expand. So I think that's the other benefit that employers get of remote workers is they just expand their knowledge about other markets.
Yeah. I think the way they envision the job at the moment is live in person here physically in Valpo. Maybe they'll reconsider that over time. I don't know. What
is the company, Tom?
It's called Ethos Insurance and Risk Management. ETHOS. Ben Zimmer is the CEO. He's been he's the one we're working with. Ethos Insurance and Risk Management.
Ethoslife.com.
Let me look.
Or ethosriskmanagement.com.
There you go. EthosRiskMGT.com.
Yep. Westport, Indiana, Valparaiso. They got 2 offices.
It's run by a neat young guy, and it's been around a number of years. I've met him, and that's not unusual. We have those kinds of opportunities a lot that come through the Career Center. Sometimes they're posting them online on one of these job boards, Melanie, and they're not finding the right fit. It's a shotgun approach. They'd rather use a rifle approach and get some referrals, some targeted candidates, as opposed to just kind of a posting, and then you get all kinds of applicants. Like you said, mindful applying. People are not using mindful applying, and they get a lot of junk. So it can be frustrating from a hiring standpoint.
And the right fit is, I mean, we, especially for some of our more entry level positions where you don't necessarily have to have really in-depth technical skills, we'll often say that the cultural fit, personality fit, the likability, so to speak, is more important than does this person possess the exact technical skills that we need. Because you can train technical skills, but you can't train personality. You can't train that. So yes, the actual fit to the position is huge. And if you bring in somebody, the proverbial bad apple, so to speak, that can come in, they can pollute the rest of the team, and it can really upset the company culture. So yes, finding that right fit should be important both as you're looking for a new job, because same thing, if you get into an opportunity that isn't the right fit for you, it can pollute your entire mindset and your home life and make your life miserable. And so it goes both ways. Fit is huge.
Yes, it does. Well, we're at the hour spot, and Melanie, I want to be cognizant, mindful of your time. Thank you very much for doing this, leading this, putting this together. A lot of preparation.
Absolutely.
I know we talked a number of times, both online and over the phone, and really appreciate your interest and support of Valpo and our office and some of the things that we're trying to do. And this is the first one of these we've done where we've had someone present this way. Ron, I think your ideas were great. Lisa, thank you for participating. Thank you to all of you for joining this evening, and look for more of these kinds of things. I think we need to take Ron's idea and tweak some things, try different sessions, events, activities, virtual things online, and see what happens. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you all for
Thank you very
attending. I
much for
appreciate it.
really
I'll get a recording of it to you and let us know how we can help you. Okay. Melanie, again, thank you very much for leading this and your
No problem. Happy to help.
expertise.
Yes.
Good
All
night,
right. Well,
everyone.
thank you, everybody. Have
Good
a good
night,
rest of
everyone.
your evening.
All
God
righty.
bless. Stay safe.
All right.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.